So to start off like with the introduction of what I want to say, as somebody who's very involved with the community, it's something that's I've been constantly seeing, and it's just being brought up too many times for me to think it's a coincidence. And obviously whatever Hashem does, he's, especially like in every individual person's life, Hashem has his ways of communicating with the person. And there's something that I just, again, it's been for the past, many years I've been seeing this, but especially like now, like I've been seeing it more often. And it's the idea of, there's kids who, we all grew up, in LA. We might have went to Jewish school, might have not went to Jewish school, went to Reform, Conservative, doesn't matter what we went, but we're people who, grew up with, Baruch Hashem, the people I'm talking to, and most of the people are going to be listening to this are people whose families are proud to be Jewish and identify as Jewish, which is amazing. It's getting so bad with assimilation that many Jews are not even identifying as Jewish or don't even know that they're Jewish because of how badly their families assimilated. So I'm talking towards a different type of crowd. I'm talking towards a crowd that's is proud of their Jewish identity, right? But it might be that there's certain other things about their Jewish identity that they're not so 100% about. And I'll explain what I mean. And the topic of tonight is the idea of why are, I put the word Persian parents, but this applies to anybody, any type of parents, Jewish parents. Why are Jewish parents scared for the kids to become religious, okay? Now, again, very important topic, very, very sensitive topic. And, I don't want to, God forbid, offend anybody. I'm trying to say it in the most positive way possible, not to offend anybody, because I have no intent to offend anybody. And like I said before, I'm not coming to claim I'm an expert on the topic. Who the heck am I to even talk to you guys about this? I'm not coming here to say I know everything, whatever. I'm here to just share with you what I experienced in my own life, and hopefully I have solid insights. I feel like I'm so very experienced with this based off of just having a lot of interactions with students, with parents, and discussing these topics, and and to the point where I feel like I'm comfortable enough to give a class on it, okay? But again, not judging anybody, not coming to act like I'm an expert, just coming here to share with you my humble opinion, okay? If it means anything. So again, the question is, why are parents, whether they're Persian, it doesn't matter, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, doesn't matter, why are parents scared of their kids becoming religious? Baruch Hashem, we live in a new generation where there's a lot of Jewish people who grew up not super connected to their Judaism, not Jewish identity-wise, maybe not they're excellent as, but I'm saying religious-wise, studying Torah, keeping mitzvot, working, stuff like that. And there's right now, I could tell you, just I've been seeing it myself, there's a revolution, for sure in the LA community, especially among Persians, but across all spectrums, even across the world, we've been seeing this, but there's a revolution of Jews who are trying to not just have I identify with Israel, part of their Jewish identity, but more of the religious identity of I want to keep Shabbat, kosher, whatever, having Torah in their lives, living a life where they study Torah, keep the mitzvot. And there's a big revolution going on with Jews all over the world trying to be connected more to their Judaism in a religious way. And there's a whole situation where many parents are, in a sense, maybe against it. Maybe they're not against it to the point where they're stopping it, but they're uncomfortable with it. So there's a huge dilemma going on in that area. And many, many students, again, as a person who talks to so many different types of people, I talk to people who are literally very good, very, very good people who are just trying to do their thing. They're trying to go to school, get a degree, go to medical school, go to law school, whatever. And they want to become, they want to keep Shabbat, they want to keep kosher, they want to, step it up in the religious observance because they believe in Torah. They believe God exists, that the Torah is true, that there's a purpose to life, right? And for them, it's okay, what is this Judaism thing without religion, right? Judaism is not Judaism. It's not, I just identify with Israel, I speak Hebrew. The real Judaism is the Torah. That's why we're a nation, because God gave us the Torah. That's what makes us Jews. That's the main thing about our Judaism, And I always say this, a lot of people when it comes to that, should we deserve Israel or not? From a secular perspective, we don't deserve Israel. We just want it because might makes right. But from a religious perspective, and this is what our claim to Israel is that the only reason we should get Israel is not because we had history there. That's not why we should get Israel. It's because God gave us Israel. It's because this is the country God chose for the Jewish people. It has nothing to do with cultural and identity. Again, nations are always, going from land to land, getting exiled. We're not the only nation that's been exiled, And the idea I'm trying to say is that our Jewish identity is not about nationalism or flags or wearing a Star of David. That's great. But the main aspect of being Jewish is the Torah. That's what makes us all connected. The Torah says we're all children of a guy named Jacob, right? Yisrael, his other name. So we're Bnei Yisrael. We're one big family. That's what the Jewish people are. We're a family. We're a family that has a collective mission of being a light to the nations and bringing morality and ethics and light into the world. Whether that's spiritual light with morality and ethics, teaching the world values of, equal rights, caring for the poor and for the weak. Again, read the book World Perfect by Ken Spiro. He brings down what Jews contributed to the world morality and ethics-wise. All the major religions are based off that. And then physically also, we're physical light, meaning when it comes to science, chemistry, technology, medicine, anything topic you can think of, we're also a light in that area, So what I'm trying to say is that's our mission as the Jewish people. So for some, so the idea I'm trying to say, there's people who are realizing that, Torah is true. And not only is Torah true, right? Again, you could prove, that's my whole book. You guys know Indisputable Truth. You can not only prove God exists, not only can you prove that the Torah is divine, that every other religion is not man-made. They're not, God-given. They're all man-made. And that Judaism is the only God-given religion. Again, not in a I'm better than you way. Just like reality. There's evidence for Judaism. There's no evidence for any other religion. So Torah, God exists, the Torah is true, and what's the third thing? That there's a purpose to life. We're not random people. God didn't just create us because he's bored and he left the world. There is a mission for what we need to do in this world and what we need to accomplish, right? So I'm going on the premise, this is very important. Whoever is listening to this, I'm going on the premise that you believe Judaism is true. If you don't believe Judaism is true, then everything I'm saying right now is big fat baloney. It's nonsense. I'm a crazy person talking right now, okay? That's the reality. Sorry, let me turn off my... Right? Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my AirPods. Without that premise, so we have to have a couple premises. We're going on the premise that you believe Judaism is true. If it is not true, everything I'm saying is nonsense from a logical perspective, and really it's just a waste of time, okay? But assuming you went through the evidence, you examined, and you believe it's true, that's one aspect here that people are of all ages, especially the young generation, is coming to realize that Torah is true. And the other aspect, the other side of the picture is that not only is Torah true, but Torah emet, but it's Torah chaim. Torah is the instruction manual to life. Meaning, if the Torah is true, what does the word Torah mean? It means instructions. Torah chaim, instructions for life. God, the creator of the universe, gave something called the Torah, which is the instruction manual on how to master this thing life. What does that mean, master life? Mastering marriage, how to be the best husband or wife. Mastering raising kids. The Torah gives us tons of instructions of how to raise the best possible kids, right? The Torah gives us instructions on how to live in the best society, how to be productive members, how to be honest, how to work on your bad character traits, how to be an elevated human being. So a lot of people realize not only is Torah true, but it's beautiful. Shabbat is beautiful, spending time with your family and your kids and not focusing on getting away from your phone, right? All the mitzvahs, there's a lot of beauty to the mitzvahs because they're divine, it's from God, and God gave it to us not because he needs anything. He's not a needy God, he's an infinite being. He gave it to us purely for our benefit so we can live the best lives possible. So that's the premise I'm going off of. Again, if someone doesn't have those premises down, nothing I'm about to say is going to be relatable. Okay, it's very important. Nothing I'm going to say is going to make sense. Everything I'm going to say is like some crazy guy talking and, some dogmatic guy who's just trying to get his opinion across. Again, so I'm going on that assumption. So let's assume we believe that. Again, we're Jewish people. If we're keeping Yom Kippur, right, the same Torah that says keep Yom Kippur is the same Torah that says, for example, keep Shabbat, right? So I'm talking from the same Torah. I'm not making up a new Torah. I'm not making up things rabbis said. I'm telling you, again, you could prove rabbis didn't make it up. You could prove whatever God gave to Moses. There's no broken telephone. Again, I'm going on a lot of assumptions. I'm assuming, in a sense, you read my book. That's why I wrote my book. That's the reason I wrote my book. Fine. So going back to the question, because there's a revolution, there's a lot of kids, who are trying to get closer to Hashem and work on their character traits and, become what we call religious. And again, I want to define that term, what religious means, because a lot of people are confused about what religious means. Because once there's a rise in kids becoming religious, there's a rise, unfortunately, in upset parents or disappointed parents or parents who feel like they lost their children. Okay, that's the reality of what's going on, and we have to address that. Okay, so let me give you one more premise before I begin, and then we could continue. Okay, the other premise I want to give is defining the word religious, right? Why are parents, Jewish parents, are scared of their kids becoming religious? So I could give you that question, but if we're not on the same page of what religious means, nothing I'm going to say is going to make sense. So what does the Torah say? What does religious mean? Now, religious, I don't like that word at all, honestly. I think it's a very, very, negative word. Because when you talk about religious, it's like, people are reminded of, other religions, right? They're reminded of people who are fanatic, who blow themselves up for their religion, right? There's so many bad connotations that come with the word religious, right? So I'm going to use the word religious because the reality is there's no better word to use it than that. But I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say the word religious. Religious, from my definition, again, and my definition is the Torah definition, is not how you dress, not dressing black and white, okay? Obviously, modesty has to do with religious, right? But I'm talking about, you don't have to wear a black velvet kippah, you don't have to wear white and black, you don't have to wear a black hat. That's not what religious means, okay? Religious means very simple. Religious means the whole purpose of life is to get close to God. Religious means a person who's serious about his relationship with God, of getting close to God, and there's 4 ways of doing that. Number 1 is studying the Torah, which is the instruction manual. Again, I'm going to put it into 4 categories, but they're all one category in a pure sense. So number 1 is studying Torah. Torah is the instruction manual to life. Okay, it's the guidebook on how to become the best human being possible, and becoming the most moral human being possible gets you close to God. That's the whole point of the Torah. Okay. Number 2, mitzvahs. So what is mitzvahs? There's tons of mitzvahs, all types of categories of mitzvahs that we have as Jews. There is Shabbat, there is kosher, but guess what? There's also the mitzvah of honoring your parents. There's also the mitzvah of not lying, not deceiving, right? Not giving loans with interest, not putting people down with your words, right? Guarding your eyes, right? Not speaking lashon hara, negative speech, even if it's true. Not lying. There's meaning not lying about other people. Motzi shemra, shek, whatever. There's so many different mitzvahs. There's 2 types of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs between us and God, like Shabbat, kosher, not shaving with a razor, right, for a guy, wrapping tefillin, wearing tzitzit, praying, right? And then there's mitzvahs that are between us and other people. Again, not to steal, not to cheat, not to lie, not to hurt people with your words, not to be jealous of people, not to covet other people, right? There's so many different mitzvahs. Work on your character traits. So there's 2 categories of mitzvahs, okay? So when I mean religious doesn't mean, I only keep the stuff between me and God and I ignore everything between me and other people. If you do that, you are not religious. You could you could keep Shabbat all day long, wrap tefillin all day long. You could do every single mitzvah between you and God. But if you're lacking in ben adam lechavero, meaning between you and other people, the mitzvahs, most of the mitzvahs and a lot of the mitzvahs, if you go through the 613 commandments, many of them, the ones that apply today because we don't have a temple, are between us and other people, more than between us and God, from what I remember, going through it. So if someone tells me, I keep Shabbat, I keep kosher, I keep the highest standards of all that, but they're a horrible human being when it comes to other people, they are not good people. They are not religious. Okay? right? If you look at the 10 Commandments, God didn't give the Jewish people 10 commandments. He gave 613 commandments, okay? But the 10, they're really aseret hadibrot, means not commandments, but categories. And those 613, you could derive them from those 10 categories. And if you look at it's 2 tablets, one half of the tablets are commandments between us and God. Whether it's believing in God, keeping Shabbat, not swearing falsely in God's name, right? And then there's the other half is like, okay, don't kill, don't commit adultery, right? Between us and other people. One half is between us and God, one half is between us and other people. And the Torah is trying to teach you, why is it half and half like that? Why is half of it between us and God and half of it between us and other people? Because the Torah is trying to teach you, to be a good person, you need both. So if someone is, keeping Shabbat, keeping kosher, but they're not good with other human beings, they lie, they cheat, they scam, they do all that, they are not a good human being according to God. On the other hand, if they're, they're good to everybody, they give charity, they're nice to people, whatever, but they don't keep between, the commandments between them and God, that they're also lacking those type of people, because you need both. Again, who defines good and bad? God. So going back to what I was saying, number 1 is studying Torah. Number 2 is keeping the mitzvahs, and you need to do both type of mitzvahs, between us and God, between us and other people. That's number 2. Number 3, to be religious, is working on your character traits. Again, you're angry, you're jealous, you're stingy, you're impatient, you're impulsive, you're intense, whatever the bad character traits there are. God requires us to work on those character traits. You could finish the entire Talmud 500 times, but if you don't fix your character traits, you're not going to have closeness to God. So one of the ways of getting close to God, we believe as religious Jews, is to master every character trait. Okay? So again, are there religious people who have bad character traits? Yes. It's character traits. It says, one of the big rabbis say it's easier to finish the entire Talmud, which again, the Talmud, if you do 1 page a day, it takes 4 or 5 hours, like if you do it right, and it takes 7.5 years because there's like over 2,500 pages. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who's one of the rabbis who mastered like ethical teachings, says that it's easier to finish the Talmud than to fix one bad character trait. Okay, and most people are struggling in bad character traits. That's one of the hardest things to break. So again, I'm not, God forbid, someone has bad character traits, right? Obviously, the Torah that's the whole point of the Torah, is to try to teach you to overcome those bad character traits. But again, I'm not going to judge and say, oh, this guy has, everyone has bad character traits, and the goal is to work on that. But yes, if someone tells me I'm never working on my character traits, I'm happy the way I am, I'll keep Shabbat and kosher, whatever, that's a problem. We're here to work on our character traits. So that's the third aspect of being religious. And the fourth aspect, which a lot of people forget, it's not about your relationship with God. There's also about helping other people. So to be a religious person means you don't just focus on yourself, you focus on other people. Whether that means, for example, helping another Jew, giving charity, what are other examples? Giving charity, helping, doing acts of kindness, right? Feeding the poor, helping another Jew who needs help, whether it's giving him a loan, whether it's just giving him a hand, whether it's talking to the person and cheering him up. There's so many different commandments we have on helping other people. Again, so to be religious doesn't mean black and white, doesn't mean how you dress, it just means how well you do in those 4 areas, okay? So if I see a guy, I don't care how big his sombrero is, how big his hat is, that's not going to tell me he's religious. It's easy to dress religious. It costs $20 for a sombrero, no, not 20, let's say $100, Borsalino hat, and to wear black and white, go get a Charles Turwood shirt, $30, $40, wear black Lululemon pants, $100, whatever, I'm just making things up. The idea is it's easy to dress, but the action is what matters. That's what we believe is religious. Again, I don't care so if I see a guy in the street and he's acting in a bad way and he's dressed in the whole costume, that doesn't mean anything to me, whether he's religious. That's not an indicator. And like I said, I've said this before in my previous classes, you don't judge Judaism by the Jew. Judaism is perfect, the Jew might not always be perfect. That's the reality. Okay, Torah is perfect. The Torah teaches you how to be the best human being, but the Jew might not be perfect. Okay, Torah is trying to get people to become more better, right? So that's the idea there. Fine. Those are the backgrounds I wanted to say. Now that we have all that, we could start jumping into going through 2 things I want to do. Number 1, explain why Persian parents or any type of Jewish parent is scared of the kid becoming religious, and what is our solutions that students or anybody who wants to become religious, what's the best way of approaching it with their family and their parents? Okay, fine. So with that being said, again, a couple stories and then we'll start. I think the stories are important. Okay. I'll tell you how bad it is. It got so bad that I have students who tell me that, what Birkat HaMazon is? The prayer where you thank God for eating bread? They tell me one time he sang Birkat HaMazon in the prayer book and his mom started crying because he wanted to say Birkat HaMazon. Another student told me, he wanted to, Shavuot, there's a night we spend the whole night learning Torah, okay? And on Shavuot night, his parents wanted to go out of town, and they basically knew he wasn't going to go out of town because he didn't want to break Shavuot, break the holiday, he wanted to, be home, whatever, and, stay up, learn Torah, be a part of the community, like all night learning. And basically his parents, he lived in deep Beverly Hills, they basically turned on the alarm on him and turned off all the lights for 2 days. He was trapped at home, okay? Because his parents didn't want him to go learn Torah at night. Again, when I say Torah learning, it's the stuff I just mentioned, how to elevate yourself, how to work on your character traits, how to help other people, how to overcome jealousy, anger, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what his parents did. That's how bad it got. Again, I'm going to talk to you from the parents' perspective also because I talk to these parents and I'll tell you what's going on through their mind. So don't judge anybody yet. I just want to show you though what's going on. And don't judge anybody at all, obviously, never judge. But I'm just saying, don't jump to conclusions yet before I finish my whole point. So another kid, and I've been dealing with this the past couple of days, I have a student who's begging me, Aaron, please, I want to go to Yeshiva. Please help me go to Yeshiva. I want to go. I want to grow. And Yeshiva, they teach you how to become a better person, how to, dating, marriage, happiness. They teach you a lot of good ideas that make your life better. So the kid's dying to go. And he told me if my parents find out that I'm going, they're not going to let me go. And the guy, he finished his school. So it's not like, okay, he's pausing school or anything. He finishes school. He has time until he goes to grad school. So he wants to go before he does his grad school stuff, okay? So the guy told me, though, if my parents find out, they're gonna stop me, physically stop me from going. They're gonna hide my passport. They're gonna get in front, and I don't want to fight with them. I can't. I know this is the right thing to do. I know they can't understand why this is the right thing to do because they didn't grow up like that. But I gotta go. And the kid, literally, this is what he told me. He had to hide from his parents that he's going. Okay. He told me, I don't want you to talk to my parents. Don't talk to my parents. I gave him the money. Whatever. I felt bad. I helped the guy, but he told me, don't talk to my parents. And again, he's overage. It's not like we're talking about an 18-year-old. We're talking about a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, okay, who's mature, who has his head on his shoulders. And I gave him the money, and he booked a flight to go to Israel. And he couldn't tell his parents. He only told his parents once he landed because he knew his parents are going to stop them. And once he's there, they're going to just let him go, right? And for 3 days, his parents, no, for a week, whatever, have been calling me, harassing me. What's wrong with you? Why are you sending my son? And honestly, because I'm doing so many things, I didn't have the patience to really talk to them, and he told me not to talk to them until he landed. So once he landed, I'm like, okay, I feel bad for I want to talk to his parents and try to have a normal conversation and explain to them that don't worry, I'm not sending your kid to a club and go party all day. I'm not sending him on a trip called Buzz where he's traveling around Europe doing whatever he's going to do. I'm literally helping the kid go to a place where he's going to work on his character traits and become a elevated person, and then he's going to come back to to society and do his grad school and be a productive member of society. That's all I'm trying to do. But the parents were so emotional and were so set in stone on what they believed in, they didn't even give me an opportunity to speak. I was just getting screamed at for 20 minutes straight. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even explain myself. I tried to explain myself. I tried to ask him, hey, why don't you want him to go? Let's talk it through, right? Is it obviously, God forbid, it's a health risk, that. Okay, yeah. But I could see it's just they just don't want him to go. And he was telling me that they're very anti-religious, right? So this is the situation we're going through. And the guy's the good boy, who wants to go, wants to get closer. Again, another guy wants to go to Yeshiva, and he's telling me, oh, my parents, they're making my life, very difficult because I want to go. There's another guy, again, so many people. Again, I'm telling you bunches of people. Another person, his parents threatening him, I'm going to cut you off. Again, that's a lot of the kids like that. Oh, you're going to go to Israel? I'm not giving you a credit card, nothing. You go stranded, do it. I don't want to support you, right? So again, this is the situation we're in. Okay, this is what people are facing. Fine. So that's some examples of what's going on. Now, I want to say, before I say anything, I want to tell you from the parents' perspective, okay? From the parents' perspective, I totally 100% get exactly what they're doing, and I do not, I don't judge them at all. I don't judge them at all. Obviously, if you don't know what Judaism is, if you don't know what Torah is, yeah, if your kid goes to Yeshiva, Judaism looks like a cult. It looks like you're going to lose your kid. Maybe there's bad examples in the community of people who became fanatic. And yeah, from the parents' perspective, in their mind, it's if my kid goes to Yeshiva, that's what they think, even though they're totally wrong. That's not what Yeshiva is. Yeshiva is supposed to make your relationship with your kid better, make your kid more respectful, or whatever. But from their perspective, or they had bad experiences, or their friends, they totally think if my kid becomes religious, I lost my kid. So when they do what they do to try to stop their kid from going and put pressure on whatever, I completely understand where they're coming from. Even though I completely disagree with them, because I have more knowledge than they do of what their kid is doing. They don't have a knowledge. They never went to Yeshiva. They don't know what it is. They had bad misconceptions going around from different people who are swaying their opinions. But from my perspective, right, I understand what they're going through. So I just want to say, whoever's listening to this, because I know there's going to be parents listening to this, I completely understand from your perspective why you would do anything. And honestly, that just shows the parents are good parents, honestly. From my perspective, that's how much they care about the kid. So in their mind, if they think their kid is doing something wrong and they're trying to do whatever they can to stop it, I totally understand. And that actually shows they're good parents. Not that I agree with them. I think they're totally wrong. But again, it's coming from love. They love their kid. And if they think they're going to lose their kid, who wouldn't do anything they can to stop their kid from losing their kid? From their perspective, they think they're losing it. Again, it's wrong. That's not what's happening. It's going to get them, better relationship with their kid. But from their perspective, I totally understand. So I just wanted to say that. Fine. With that being said, okay, that's the intro. That's the background. Let's go. So why are parents scared of their kids becoming religious? Okay. So a lot of people think, they're anti-God. It could be. Sometimes they're, anti-religious. Could be they hate Torah. It could be. It could not be. I don't know. There's a lot of things. It could be trauma. It could be identity. It could be history. There's psychology. There's a lot of things around. Now, I'm going to go, again, the first part of what I'm going to talk about is going to be the reasons for, the reasons from the parents, okay, why they don't want their kids to become religious, and the second part is solutions. So let's start with reason A. Reason A, why parents are scared of their kids becoming religious, is fear of emotional separation, okay? What does that mean? So again, this is from me talking to so many students and parents and of what I see. So this is not my, this is a lot of research and, looking into this. So number one, fear of emotional separation. Number one, you're not going to be like us anymore. Parents are very scared that their kid is going to be different from them. And that's a total justification, because you know what? People want their kids to be like them. That's what every parent's dream is, for my kid to be like me, right? So if I'm successful, if I'm like this, I want my kid to also be successful. Or if I'm not so successful, obviously I want my kid to be successful. So I want to do whatever he can to, to be like me, whatever. I want my kid to eat like me, think like me, talk like me, do the type of work I'm doing, right? Generally speaking, that's what parents want. They want to be similar to their kids, because the more similar you are to somebody, the more, technically speaking, closest you have to them, in a sense, right? That's one. Another thing is there's a mentality, right? It's kind of like, it's either you're in our camp or you're in their camp. It's not like, okay, we could play together, basketball on the court, and, you do you, I do me. It's like, no, it's either on our team or you're not on our team, right? Another idea, fear the child will judge them, okay? People are scared that their children are going to judge them, right? Give me a second here. Let me just record. I want to record this. Sorry. Okay. So people are scared, right, that their kids are going to judge them. So what does that mean? I'm scared if my kid goes to yeshiva, he's going to become some dogmatic, judgmental person who's going to think he's better than everybody, who's going to say that I'm not living according to what he's studying, and is going to judge me, is going to put me down, make me feel bad about what I'm doing, right? And listen, if some rabbi on the street is being religious, okay, let him do me, it doesn't bother me. But if it's my kid and he's in my home and I'm going to interact with him a lot, that's going to be very annoying. That's going to be very, it's going to cause me a lot of emotional anxiety and emotional pain that my kid is judging me and my kid looks, because every parent wants to be a hero in their kid's eyes. So as soon as a kid looks at his parent as not a hero and is getting judged by their kid, and the kid's like, hey, who are you? Look at you, you do this, you do that, what are you, right? It's the worst feeling a parent could get from a kid, right? Another idea. So again, fear of the child will stop respecting them. Fear of losing closeness, right? They're scared, right? If my kid becomes more religious, well, I'm not going to be close to him anymore. He's not going to be into the same stuff I'm into. So I don't know. Let's say, for example, you like watching movies, and my kid becomes religious. He stops watching movies, so we're going to lose our closeness. We're going to lose our relationship, right? If our relationship is dependent on us watching movies together, and he, for example, doesn't watch those type of movies. Let's say they're inappropriate, or whatever, right? Like rated R, or whatever, cursing and this, and he doesn't want to watch that because he's more, he feel like, hey, that's not the type of stuff I want to expose myself to, my kids to. So well, that's connecting us. I'm going to lose that, right? So that's another reason. But ironically, the pressure the parents cause their kids to say, hey, don't be different, whatever, it's child rebellion, right? Meaning the more you tell him not to do it, the more he's going to want to do it. That's the reality of it, right? So the pressure they apply can create the separation they fear. It's like they fear, meaning it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? So again, that's point A. I want to, I want to quickly, just go through why those are all misconceptions, right? So let's quickly go. So you're not like us anymore. So again, what do you mean you're not like us anymore, right? What does that mean? So, you like this kind of movie, I watch that type of movie, right? People are different. It's like you could still have a relationship with somebody, even if you for example, one guy likes to play basketball, one guy likes to play soccer, right? Just because they don't play the same sports doesn't mean they can't be close to each other, right? You're right, in that particular sport, it's harder to bond, but there's so many other avenues of life you could be close, right? Either, fear the child will judge them. So very important. If a child, so in yeshiva, right? Or, again, this is, whether the kid wants to become religious or go to yeshiva, right? What do they teach you in religion? What does Judaism teach you? Judaism teaches you, don't judge another person until you're in their shoes, meaning you can't judge anybody. Who knows, if you're in their situation, you might be also, it might be hard for you also. You cannot judge somebody. And especially a parent judging a child, that's anti-religious, that's anti-God. God does not want you to do that. So yes, can there be exceptions to the rule that there's kids who are so fanatic that they judge their parents and like, oh, you don't keep Shabbat, you're going to go to hell? There are people like that. Those people are totally not doing what God wants them to do. And in yeshiva, they teach you not to do that, not to be judgmental, to understand your parents maybe grew up in a different environment, they didn't get the education you got, they didn't get the same exposure, they didn't listen to the same 500 hours of classes as you did, or read the same books as you did. So who are you to judge them? You can't judge them. You don't know. You were in their shoes also. You didn't know Torah. You were also, not keeping Shabbat. It's not their fault they don't keep Shabbat. It's not their fault they don't keep code. They don't know any better. You can't blame them. And you can't look down upon them, because that doesn't mean, if they had the same knowledge as you did, I'm sure they would keep it also. So kids who judge, again, if they're kids like that, number one, they're doing something called the Chil Hashem. They're doing the worst sin possible, because they're turning other people off from Judaism. Because when parents find out that their friends' kids become super judgmental, dogmatic, and all that, guess what? They're not going to want to become religious. They're not going to want their kids to become religious, because that's what they're scared of. And again, is it majority of people like that? No, majority of people are not like that. But the few rotten apples mess it up for everybody. Okay, so you should understand that that those people are exceptions. There are people who again are just socially off, right? The people who I know do that kind of stuff, I know they're socially off, right? Or they might not be socially off. No one taught them it, or maybe they missed class that day when the rabbi told them, don't judge your parents, don't force things upon your parents, don't think you're better than them, right? Again, respect your parents, right? So maybe they missed that class. But the idea is Judaism does not teach you that. So if you see someone acting like that, they are going against Torah and they are not acting religiously. Okay, it's very important. Judaism doesn't teach you to be judgmental about your parents, doesn't teach you to stop respecting them, doesn't teach you to be far away from your parents. It actually teaches you the opposite, to get close to your parents, to help them, to build a relationship with them. Okay, so that's very important. So that's idea number one, okay? So let's go to idea number two. Fear of marriage rejection. So many parents, okay, so idea number two, okay? So again, going back to idea point A, fear of emotional separation. Torah teaches you not to be judgmental, not to be disrespectful, and not to lose closeness to your family. Torah teaches you should be the most unjudgmental person possible. You should be the most respectful person possible to your parents, to the point where halacha teaches you that if your parents smack you in the face, you're not allowed to fight. If you hit them back, you just did the biggest sin possible, and it's very, very bad. You're not allowed to, again, no one's saying let your parents hit you. Let's say someone's parents are crazy and they smack them in the face, whatever. You're not allowed to make a beep against them. You're not allowed to embarrass them. Again, I'm just saying an extreme case. That I remember there's a story that there's a person where his mom, she lost her mind. The Gemara says, and the mom, in the middle of this religious person, he was in a business meeting, this rabbi, she came, ripped his shirt, spit on him, got his wallet, threw it in the ocean, right? Thrown it in the ocean. And the guy, right, the Gemara says there's a story of a parent who who lost her mind and started like misbehaving and like doing crazy stuff and whatever. And you know what the Torah says? The rabbi didn't make a beep. didn't fight back. Yeah, obviously don't let them hit you. Like, you don't have to let them beat you up. But like I'm saying, like he didn't fight back. You would think, if that happened to any other person, smack their parent, fight their parent back. The Torah teaches you are not allowed to lift a finger against your parent. You have to respect them. You can't make a beep against them. You're not allowed to, how many halachas? I want to show you right now something very important. Okay, this is very important. I have a whole big book here. Okay, the laws of honoring your parents. Okay. Now this is a pretty thick book. This is just a kitzur, means like a summary of it. But the topic is, there's books and books like this fat written on the topic of honoring your parents. What the halacha says about honoring your parents. Look at this. Look what the Torah teaches you, right? So the Torah teaches you unbelievable things. Let me just give you a few examples, right? You're not allowed to contradict your parents, okay? Like if your parents say something, you're not allowed to say you're wrong. If they're wrong on something, okay, there's a way of saying it in a more respectful way. You're not allowed to say they're wrong. You have to stand up when they walk in the room, to your full height, right? If they ask you to do something, again, obviously if they ask you to break the Torah, right? The Torah says, well, you have to, if they tell you to eat non-kosher, right? So the Torah says you have to, respect Hashem. Your parents also have to respect Hashem, and you have to respect Hashem. So they can't tell you to violate the Torah. But if they ask you, hey, can you help me? Can you get this? Can you do that? It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, meaning it's a command by God. Meaning if you don't do it, God will hold you accountable. You lose your relationship with God. You get distance from God by not keeping those commandments of honoring your parents. There's two commandments. There's a commandment to honor them by doing things for them, and there's a commandment of to refrain from doing things. So again, doing things for them, getting them if they ask you for a glass of water, if they ask you to take out the trash, right? And then there's a command to do positive things, and then there's the negative, meaning don't do the negative, like don't sit in their seats, right? If they have a designated spot, you're not allowed to sit in their spot. You're not allowed to contradict their words, whatever. Examples like that. And again, there's a whole book, going through all the laws of standing and sitting in your parents' place, contradicting your parents. Again, laws upon laws. Just using your parents' first name. The Torah says you're not allowed to call your parents by their first name, right? You're not to title them, to honor them, to give here. Feeding them, giving them drink, dressing them, covering them, bringing them in, taking them out. There's stories, of rabbis who literally would bend down on the floor. So the parents, let's say they needed to climb up a stair or whatever, go onto the bed. They would go on the floor and let their parents step on them to go onto the bed. That's how far the Torah takes it. So again, the Torah teaches you how to honor your parents. This is an example of one book. This is what you're learning in yeshiva. Literally, what you're learning in yeshiva. One of the things you're learning out of the many things, right? So again, if a kid goes against those things, he tells his parents, you're going to hell. He tells his parents, who are you? You're this, you're that. You don't keep anything. You're a goy. They say crazy stuff like that. Right? They stop talking to if someone stops talking to his parents, right, and loses their connection, they are sinners. If you reject your parents' phone call because I'm better than if you think like that, you are not a religious person. That is the rule. That is what the Torah says. That's not what I say. So again, Torah teaches you. So the parents who are afraid they're going to lose their kid, right? The Torah doesn't teach you to do that. Again, are there exceptions? Other people are crazy. Okay, then maybe your son is just crazy. He's acting like that, or maybe didn't have the right teachers. But most people, most yeshivas, most institutions, most places, again, teach you how to be the ultimate human being to your parents. Okay, so just for parents who are scared about that's what Judaism teaches. Okay, next, fear of marriage rejection. There are many people, and this is what I heard from parents, they're very scared that okay, my son is gonna love me, but if he gets married to a girl who is quote unquote religious, right? That girl is gonna, is not gonna accept us because she's religious and we're not religious, and maybe she's not gonna want me, leave the kids in the house. She's not gonna wanna, eat at my house, whatever it is, right? It could be, she's gonna reject us. So many people are scared that their spouses are gonna reject them, right? So again, is that, let me keep going here before I answer. So fear future spouse won't accept the non-religious family. Fear being excluded from the grandchildren's lives. They're fear, my kid becomes religious, I'm not gonna be involved in my grandkids' lives. Fear that, of tension at family events, and fear we won't belong anymore, okay? Now, that's what is going on through the head. Again, valid things to be worried about. Again, and are there exceptions to the rule of crazy people? Yes, there are crazy people who are like that. Hopefully, majority, 99% is not like that of girls or guys. They're not like that. We're going to, but are there exceptions? I'm not going to lie. There are people who are freaking cuckoo, and yeah, they're going to be like that. Hopefully, you have a normal kid, a daughter or a son, and he's not going to marry someone like that. But the problem is they assume 99% of people are like that. And the problem is, Judaism doesn't teach that. Judaism teaches that, again, if your spouse's family is not religious, it's not a problem. You can marry a girl who has a non-religious family. I have friends who are literally rabbis, who their wives' families or their husband, whatever, are totally not religious, and they totally have a great relationship with their in-laws. So. And that's what they teach you. They're not going to teach you, the girl's family's not religious, don't marry her. No. Or the guy or girl, doesn't matter. It's okay as long as a person, again, obviously the spouse and you have to be on the same page, right? If you want to keep Shabbat or send your kids to Jewish school and your spouse doesn't, it's going to be a little bit difficult, right? But if the parents, who are you marrying? The family or the kid? Or the kid? You're marrying the kid. You're marrying the girl. You're not marrying her family, right? So the idea is, it's okay if the family's not religious. That's not a big deal. That's what they teach you in yeshiva, right? Again, if the family's religious, wow, it's great. It makes your life, a little bit easier. But if they're not religious, totally not a problem. And again, I'm not going to give too many details, but I personally know a lot of people in that situation, okay? A lot of people who their in-laws or family they married to a family that's completely not religious, but the girl's religious, and they're doing amazing in their marriages, okay? Now, fearing being excluded in grandchildren's lives. Okay, this is very important, right? So a lot of times, because parents live in a certain way, they want to raise their kids, they want to raise their grandkids like they raise their kids. But obviously, you have to, at the end of the day, it's the parents' responsibility of the kids of how they want to treat their kid. once they born that kid, they took on the responsibility of how to raise their kids. Now, obviously, if the person is crazy and whatever, then obviously people have to step in and help their kids if their kids don't know how to take care of kids. But people who are, again, mature, who know what they're doing and have kids, okay, they have the right, every right on how they want to raise their kids. So, for example, if they don't want their kids to eat candy till a certain age, that's up to them. And if the grandparents don't like that, they have to respect that. There has to be a mutual respect, because at the end of the day, yeah, of course it's your grandkid, it's like your kid, right? Grandkid, the Torah said grandkids are like your kids. But at the end of the day, right, it's their kid, and if they don't want their kid to eat candy at a certain age or watch television, right? Like, you might not think it's a bad thing. You know, I know parents who show their kids, like, you know, SpongeBob and all these or whatever, or certain shows that, you know, they're watching, like they might be watching an HBO show and there's literally nudity and curse and violence, and the little kid is just running around there. And some parents don't want their kid to be exposed to that, because we believe in the Torah that all your environment affects you, and even if you're a little kid, everything in your mind, kids download everything. They're a blank slate. Everything they hear, everything they say will affect them. So if the grandparents won't respect the kids in that sense, then it's not again, if the grandparents say to the kids, yeah, while your kid is at my house, while I watch your kid, I respect you. You don't want him to eat candy. You want him to go to bed at a certain time. You don't want him to watch certain TV or even TV at all, whatever you believe is right. And again, that's your responsibility as a parent. I respect that. Then yes, you're right, there won't be tension. But if grandparents don't care and they think what their kids think are stupid and they don't respect their kids, then it's not that the kids are doing the wrong thing, right? It's that the grandparents don't respect their kid, and obviously the kid's not going to want to send his kids to the grandparents' house if they know the grandparents are going to disrespect them of how they want their kids to be raised, and that's totally understandable from the kid's perspective. But again, if the kid is just crazy and I don't like your parents, I never want to see your parents. Well, again, you can have that problem whether you're religious or not religious. By the way, in the non-religious world, right, in the secular world, it's way worse than in the religious world, because at least the person who's religious, you know, is working on their character traits. You know, they know they have flaws, and they're trying to overcome and become better, and understand that you have to love your in-laws. Again, one of the commandments of honoring your parents, by the way, applies to honoring your in-laws. There's an extension that goes towards your in-laws, right? So if I say numbers-wise, I would say that because a person who lives by the Torah, there's a higher chance that your daughter-in-law or son-in-law will respect you more if you didn't, than compared to if you didn't keep Torah, right? So you can have that problem on both ends, but at the end of the day, right, again, I'm not talking about, people are crazy and are not normal, right? Again, on both sides, whether the parents are crazy and don't care and they do whatever they want, or the kids are crazy and they do whatever. No, I'm talking about people who are normal. If you're normal and you live by the Torah, you'll have the best relationship with your in-laws if both sides are sensible and both sides respect each other, okay? And there's a lot of, again, go on YouTube, there's videos of literally, so much Torah and information on how to have great relationship with your in-laws, whatever, fine. Okay, fear of tension at family events. So that's a hard one, right? You might want to go to a family event, but maybe that family event, again, they might not be respectful towards your kid's religious level, right? So that's a hard one. Again, this just all comes from both sides respecting each other. I could have non-religious relatives, but I'll still go to their house and be with them and hang out with them because they respect me, right? They respect me, what I believe in, and as long as there's a mutual respect, things could work. But if there's not a mutual respect, right? I respect them that they live their lives in a certain way, and they respect me that I live my life in a certain way. So as long as there's mutual respect, then yes, there's ways of going to family events, okay? Now, and making things work. But yes, I'll give you an example. If they're throwing a birthday party at Pizza Hut, okay, yeah, your kid can't go to Pizza Hut and eat the pizza and be a part of that family event. But the problem is, those same people don't have to do the event at Pizza Hut. There's 500 other kosher pizza restaurants, and they could order it from a different place and have respect toward, like, again, you want me to come, you have to be respectful, right? Like, God forbid, if someone wanted to have a handicapped person be at their house for Shabbat or whatever, right? And there's no elevator to come up. There's no, you have to carry up and it's a hassle, right? And they know that, and they know it's going to be a mission. So they can't get upset at the handicapped person. Oh, why didn't you come to my house for Shabbat? You're so disrespectful. What do you mean? You put me in a situation where I'm not able to. I just can't, right? So as a Jewish religious person, you can't eat non-kosher pizza, right? We have Torah, we have laws. There's a million reasons why it's not kosher. So the problem is sometimes family members don't care, right? It really comes from, again, people have the money, right? I'm telling you, it's not the end of the world. Oh, the price. Sometimes, most of the time, it's not money. It's just like, oh, I live my life in a certain way. I like Pizza Hut better than Nagila pizza, or kosher pizza, and I don't want that at my event. So you should, if you don't want that event, you can't get upset at the kid who comes to your event and doesn't eat that food, and don't think they're judging you. They just don't eat it. You have to be respectful for what they believe in. But if you want it to work and you don't want there to be a separation, well, again, there's so many options of, that work together with, that, again, you can get kosher pizza. You can make sure, don't do your event on a Shabbat. They keep Shabbat. They're not going to come driving a car on Shabbat there. So do it on a Sunday. Do it on a Friday. It doesn't work. Pick another week. I'm just saying, you have to understand, people have different sensitivities. People have things they believe in, their values. And if you want things to work, you have to just respect those values. That's it. Most family tension comes from people don't have something called hosela. Hosela in Farsi means energy. They don't have the energy to go the extra mile to make someone else comfortable. And when you don't have the energy to take the extra mile and make someone else comfortable, right? So yeah, don't expect, don't get mad at them if they don't show up or something, because you're not putting the extra energy to help them and understand their situation, just like the person doesn't have the extra energy. Again, that's an extreme example, but the handicapped guy, to make sure he has the ability to come to your house or do what he needs to do, right? So again, that's another example. So fear of tension at family events. So again, people have to be respectful, okay? And then fear we don't belong anymore. Again, I know people who are religious and their friend groups are not religious and they totally hang out. There's somebody I know who's a big rabbi of a certain organization. The guy has a non-Jewish best friend who he grew up with, and literally the person I know, he's the head of this Jewish organization, literally went and hung out with his non-Jewish friend. You know, there's no problem. Again, obviously, hang out meaning in the sense that like they're friends, they grew up together, they know each other, the guy, you know, whatever, they're older. So if you can hang out with people who are not religious. Again, if they're being a bad influence on you and they're trying to force you to, but if they say, hey, me and you can hang out and I respect you, what you want to do, and I respect where you're at, then things could work. It just comes from, you know, miscommunication and lack of respect from both ends. Again, it could be even the religious person, you know, is not appreciating the non-religious person in his background, in his upbringing. So there needs to be a mutual respect. Okay, fine, that's B. Fear of marriage rejection. Again, I'm gonna keep going here because there's a lot of points and I'm almost done with all my points of what I want to say. Okay, C. Fear of financial instability. One of the reasons why parents are afraid of their kids becoming religious is fear of financial instability, right? So people have this mindset that, if my kid becomes religious, they associate being religious with being poor. Now, why is that? Why do they think that? There's many reasons. So like I said before, people dress religious, right? And there's people who look religious. So you could see a guy dressed black and white and assume automatically he's religious. And as I said before, that doesn't mean necessarily he's religious, right? It could be a good indicator, but it doesn't mean necessarily that he is. But the idea is, yes, in the Jewish world, there are many Jewish people. We have millions of Jews. There's rich Jews and there's poor Jews. And because Jewish people are so compassionate, Jewish people, it doesn't matter whether they're religious or not religious, right? You have both, but especially people who are religious, and let's say, for example, they're in a financial situation where they can't afford certain things, or, you know, they have a, sick family, whatever. Again, I'm not going to go into why people are poor. There's many reasons why people could be poor. The Torah always says that there's always going to be poor people, right? This is the reality of the world. There's always going to be poor people, and if there was no poor people, there would be no mitzvah of giving charity. Hashem gave us the ability that there's rich people, there's poor people, right? Everybody has their different test in life of what God's testing him, right? And again, just because you have a test to be poor doesn't mean you have to sit down and be poor. No, we don't know. No one knows. So obviously you have to keep making money. And I'm just saying the reality. Let's say the reality is for somebody is poor, right? So there's idea in Judaism of giving charity. And religious people, right? Jewish people are the most charitable out of all. Again, I looked at the I looked at all the statistics and whatever, and Jewish people are the highest givers of charity in America and all over the world. Again, it's built into our religion to give charity. No matter how religious, people give charity. So yes, we have people in our nation who are not doing well for whatever reason. Maybe it's in their control, maybe it's out of control, I don't know. But the idea is they ask for charity and they need help, and we have an obligation to help them because we're Jews and these are our brothers and sisters, and you don't let your brother and sister, starve or not have clothing. You do whatever you can to help them. Now, because if the guy came to you without a kippah and asked for money, well, you don't know if he's religious or not. But it's like, because religious people look in a certain way, so as soon as you see somebody like that asking for money, right? So again, people make the assumption, all religious people are poor. That's the reality. People look at one guy and they assume, again, it's like certain races. It could be a certain race that one guy does something, or certain people like that, and people assume all people are like that. That's what happens with religious people. So anything a religious person does, people assume everybody else is like that. Okay? So the idea is it's not like that. Again, I myself know people who are extremely, meaning very serious about their religion and are multi-millionaires and billionaires. Okay, I know like that. We just did an event last week. Some of you guys came to this event in New York where you guys met those type of people who are literally very wealthy, successful religious Jews. Right? There's a lot of them. I don't know the numbers, there's a lot of them, but there's also poor Jews and there's also average Jews. We have all types of Jews, okay? So does religion say you have to be poor? Absolutely not. God is not against making Torah. Actually making money and supporting your family and getting a good job is a mitzvah to support your family, right? There's a mitzvah to get a good job and make money. Again, obviously it has to be a kosher job. If you're doing stealing, cheating, deceiving, charging insurances and doing all that, no, that's not kosher money. That's cheating, that's scamming, that's not what God wants you to do. But if you have a kosher job that you're earning an honest living, that's great. The Torah says work. You need both. You need to work, you need to make money, and you need also you need both of them go together. There's no contradiction. So there's no contradiction to become religious and also make tons of money. Again, I'm sure a lot of you guys on the Zoom know people like that. I already know a lot of you guys do know people like that. You've met them. We've done events with them, or I know who's on the Zoom here, right? So there are many religious billionaires, millionaires, and all that. So again, there's no contradiction. Now, the problem is some people become religious and they're very passionate about Judaism, so they want to become a rabbi, they want to learn longer, right? So again, yes, there are some people like that, but 99% of Jews don't become rabbis. And even the people who go to yeshiva, I know a lot of people, I know all types of people who go to yeshiva. Most people go to yeshiva don't end up becoming rabbis. Most people go to yeshiva, end up going to yeshiva, getting their learning of what they need to do, get their Jewish foundation, get their Jewish education, and then go back and work whatever jobs they're doing, accounting, law, medicine, and whatever, okay? Yes, are there 1% of people who are so passionate about studying Torah and want to become rabbis? Yes, right? There are people like that, okay? And again, good for them. It's like someone decided they want to be a teacher. That's what a rabbi is, a teacher. Good for them. They want to do that. It's their life. They can do whatever they want. But I'm just saying that if the concern is, he's going to become a rabbi. One of my students, I kept telling him, you got to be religious. It's so important. He's like, Rabbi, I just don't see myself as being a rabbi. I go to yeshiva. I just don't see myself as a rabbi. I'm like, bro, what the heck are you saying? Did I say be a rabbi? I said be religious. Be religious doesn't mean be a rabbi. Be religious means you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever, but you take your Judaism seriously. There's no contradiction. Most people can't be rabbis. Most people don't have that capability. It's a special talent. You have to have talent, passion. Not everyone can teach. Not everyone can give classes. And everyone has their different track in life. Not everyone's supposed to be the same. Everyone's different. Everyone has different missions. But the idea is, right, the fact that people are scared that, oh, my kid's going to go to yeshiva and, oh, become religious and stop working and whatever, that's a complete misconception. Again, most people go to yeshiva, they might go maybe for a couple months, 2 weeks, couple months, a year, 2 years, but eventually most people come out and they go back to work. Okay? But there's obviously, like everything, there's exceptions to the rules. And those exceptions, there's nothing wrong with the exceptions. There's nothing wrong if someone wants to be a rabbi. Guess what? My rabbis, if they didn't be rabbis, I would be nothing right now. My rabbis could have been doctors, lawyers. Again, 99% of people who went to yeshiva became doctors and lawyers and whatever, classic Jewish jobs. But there's certain people, my rabbis, for example, like right, the rabbis of the synagogues I go to, they had the opportunity. They didn't become rabbis because, oh, I want to make money. You're not going to becoming a rabbi to make money. I know people can make hundreds and maybe millions of dollars a year and they're becoming rabbis because they're passionate about it. Again, that's their choice of what they want to do. And you guys know people like that. But the idea I'm trying to say is that without the rabbis making those sacrifices, who's going to educate the kids? Who's going to teach us what's Judaism? Who's going to pass it down, right? And there's also the concept in Judaism. We always had teachers, right? For example, the Torah, God said there's 12 tribes. One of the tribe of Levi, okay? God did not give them a portion in the land of Israel. Why not? Because God wanted the Levi'im to be the teachers of the Jewish people, right? Meaning their job, I don't want you to have land. I don't want you to work. And God actually built it into the Torah that many commandments in Israel, for example, Teruma, Masa, there's many different commandments that obligate us to support the Kohanim and Leviim, who are the rabbis of the time. Again, this doesn't apply now because in the same sense, because we don't live in the land of Israel, we don't have a temple, right? But that was the law back then. Nowadays, it's in a different sense, right? To support Jewish institutions, to support Jewish schools, yeshivas, right? We have that obligation because guess what? Without them, there'd be no Judaism. We're only Jewish today. Everybody here is identifying as Jewish people because of the rabbis. Without the rabbis, there'd be no Judaism. They're the reasons why we're still Jewish. Because, like I said, Judaism without the Jewish part, without the religion, is going to turn into nationalism, and it's eventually, that doesn't keep you going as a nation. What kept us going is one thing, and all historians admit, is the Torah. The Jewish people's dedication to the Torah and keeping the Torah is what kept us, the Jewish people, and kept us from assimilating, and becoming a part of the other nations and losing our Jewish identity. That's it. So everyone has their goal. Not everyone should be a rabbi. Certain people have that. And the people who chose to be that, Chazak Baruch, good for them. Thank you. Thank you for being the teachers and making that sacrifice. Instead of making millions of dollars a year becoming a doctor or lawyer, you chose to make the sacrifice of teaching my kids and the future generations Torah. That's great. We need people like that. Everyone needs to do their role, and you're doing your role in society, right? So again, but going back, parents are afraid of the kids becoming religious because of that, but like I said, it's not an issue. So you become a kol avrech, no career, like I said, not a problem. You can have a career. Judaism is pro that. Again, the Mishnah in Perkei Avot says, you need to do both. You have to have both. Okay, I can't quote the Mishnah on the top of my head, but I remember learning that. No independence, I don't know what I wrote there. Religion equals poverty stereotype. Again, it's a misconception, it's false. Religion does not equal poverty, okay? Now again, are there religious people who have poverty? Yes, there are religious people like that, but again, that's not the majority of people like that. Torah learning perceived as impractical. Again, no one's saying learn Torah for the rest of your life for 10 hours a day. No one's saying to do that. Yeah, go to yeshiva for a year or whatever, or a couple months, and build yourself up. Yeah, that's okay. But eventually, look at me. I was in yeshiva. I had my years in yeshiva, right? I did what I had to do. But now I can't learn Torah 8 hours a day if I wanted to. It's just not reality. I have to work. I have a job. I have a family, right? So it's not going to be always possible. But at least with the skills I built, now even when I learn an hour or two a day, right, or sometimes if I'm lucky 3 hours a day, I'm really lucky because those skills I built in yeshiva and enable me to do those 2-3 hours a day and learn and really cover ground and really get into my Torah learning and understand what I'm doing, right? So again, we covered that, so that's C. Fear of financial instability, right? So we talked about that. Okay, fine. We covered that, and we showed it's a misconception. D. Fear of extremism, okay? Again, so people, why do parents not want their kids to become religious? They're scared their kids are going to become fanatic, extreme, right? And again, in their mind, they look at religious as not what I said before, studying Torah, working the character traits, helping other people, keeping the mitzvot. They look at it as like, oh, if he becomes religious, he's going to have the black, thingy like this, the payas and all that. And oh my gosh, he's going to live in Mea Sharim, in the most religious area, secluded, whatever. Again, there's so many different types of Jews. If you want to do that, Chazak Baruch, do that. You don't have to do that. Most Jews are not in that category. Most Jews, again, like I said, you don't have to wear black and white, you don't have to wear velvet, right? You don't have to do all that. Just keep Torah, do mitzvot, work in your character traits, help other people. That's what it means to be religious. You don't have to be ultra-Orthodox, black and white, Hasidish and all that. That doesn't mean religious. Again, the problem is, and again, especially in LA, you don't see enough. There are a lot of Jews like that, but you might not know because sometimes they don't wear kippah, those religious Jews. They keep everything, right? They might be very wealthy, but you don't know that because maybe they don't talk, maybe they're private, I don't know. But there are a lot of people. In New York, people see it all the time that like there's religious and successful people and they see it. But here in LA, it's way different. Like the really, really successful rich people sometimes maybe wear hats or don't wear kippahs, right? And you don't know that they're religious, but really these people are very, very religious, right? So, But again, there's no contradiction. You don't have to be ultra Hasidish. That doesn't mean what religious means. Okay, that's not what it means to be religious. Okay, black and white thinking. Okay, very important. Why parents are scared their kids become religious, because the kid's gonna have black and white thinking, right? Oh, he's gonna be black and white. It's either all or nothing, all that. They're gonna have the all or nothing approach. You either keep everything or keep nothing. Again, Judaism doesn't teach black or white thinking. Judaism, the Torah teaches you how to be the most in-depth thinker, to think in nuanced ways, to think 10 steps ahead, to be non-judgmental, to understand again with the idea of baby steps, right? We don't believe in Judaism. It's all or nothing, right? Just like everything in life, nothing in life is all or nothing. If you can't study 8 hours a day and you study 5 hours, I can't study 5 hours. I might as well not do anything. No, it's not all or nothing. Just like anything else in life. So too, Judaism is not all or nothing. But again, there are those people who are not, they're socially off, and they, somehow they become religious, and they're anyway socially off, these people, so they do extreme stuff, right? And then they make all the people who are normal look like they're crazy, right? Like again, like I said, those kids who say, oh, you're gonna go to hell to their parents, who are literally idiots, because again, that's not how you talk to your parent, and that's not what the Torah says. They're not acting religiously. I myself talk to kids like that and put them in their place for talking like that to their parents, because they're completely going against Judaism. That's the most disrespectful. They're violating the Torah. They get a sin. They disconnect from God when you do that, right? So it's very, very bad that there people are doing that. But again, that's not the majority. Those are the extreme cases. Okay, no balance. Very important. Okay, people think if I become religious, well, I'm not going to be balanced. Well, it's going to be this, and they're going to reject. People think if I become religious, I have no time for my family, I have no time for sports, exercise, all that. And I've talked to people like that. Yes, let me tell you one thing. Forget whether religious or not. Being in life, having a family, having a full-time job, right? Being a productive member of society. Life is hard to balance. Life is extremely hard to balance. And the whole point of Judaism is trying to teach you to balance your life. Right? Judaism is all about balance. Judaism is trying to teach you that you have to be a balanced individual. And people, I want to show you guys a chart I have in my, I don't know if you guys ever seen this. Let me just share my screen on Zoom, and I'm going to share it in the video I'm recording right now. Okay, the juggler, very important. This thing. Okay, wait 1 second. Look at this. This is very important. I'm about to show you. Wait. Okay. I don't know if you guys seen this website before. Okay, this website was made by a from Jew, okay, religious Jew. And he basically got Torah principles, and he made a beautiful chart out of it. His name is Mark Firestone. Okay, very I know this guy individual. He's a very unbelievable human being. Okay, so there's the idea of juggling, right? So a person in life, right? The Torah teaches you have to you have to juggle. Life is all about juggling things, right? So you have to be well balanced. So the Torah teaches you got to take care of your body, right? Now again, taking care of your body, having a full-time job, having a family, it's hard to do all that stuff, of course. But the Torah obligates you to be a juggler. So you have to take care of your body. Right? The Torah says you have to also take care of your soul. That's like your relationship with God, praying, all that kind of stuff, Shabbat, kosher, all that. You have to take care of your family and friends, right? Have a relationship with them. You have to take care of your career. You have to take care of your community. The Torah teaches you to be a juggler. Now, in the secular world, right? They're for example, they're very focused on their body and career, right? But they might neglect their family. Like again, I could give you an example. Like again, not to say it in a bad way, but Elon Musk, right? He might be excelling in his career. He's the richest person on planet Earth, and and body, I think he works out. But I don't know spirituality. I don't know if he's taking care of his soul, right? It doesn't seem like it from what I've seen. Friends and family. I don't know if you know his relationship with his family, but it's not like the craziest relationship. One of his kids, became transgender. He doesn't talk to him, right? So yeah, in the secular world, they try juggling, but it's probably out of the 5 things, 2 things they might be really good at, but they suck at the rest. But in our world, the religious world, right? For example, my mentors, for example, who are religious Jews, they're the people who have all 5 balls. They take care of their body, they take care of their soul, they take care of their family and friends, they take care of their career, and they take care of the community. Those are my mentors. My mentors are people who are balanced in all those areas. And that's what Judaism teaches, okay? So people who are not doing that, again, they're just struggling with life. And sometimes, you might be balancing your body more than a certain thing, like your career. There's different things. It's a juggling gig, right? That's a life. So again, Judaism teaches you to be balanced. So people who are not balanced, that's on them for not being balanced. That's not because of I'm going to try setting the chart at the end of the class. I just don't want to interrupt right now. Okay, but are there people who are not balanced? Yes, but that's their fault. They're not balanced. Torah teaches you to be a balanced human being. That is what Judaism teaches you. Okay, next. No joy. Okay, this is a big misconception. Oh, my kid becomes religious, the joy of life is taken away. So again, we have to define, what does joy mean, right? What does joy mean to you? There's 5 levels of, let's call it joy and use the word joy and pleasure synonymously. There's 5 levels of pleasure in this world. The lowest level is physical pleasures, eating, drinking, sexual relations. Then there's a higher level. The higher level is love. So love of your kids, love of your family, love of your grandparents, your dog, whatever it is. Then there's a level higher than that, meaning having a purposeful cause. You want to be a doctor, you want to save lives, whatever it is, right? I'm just giving you an example. Then on top of that is creative meaning. Meaning, for example, you don't want to just be a doctor. You want to be the general, you want to be the surgeon general, you want to be doing a meaningful thing, but on a mass scale, in a systemized way. You don't want to just, be a doctor in a hospital. You want to open a hospital system. And again, that's a good example. And the highest level we say is a relationship with God, being spiritual, right? Studying Torah, praying, wrapping tefillin, right? Those are the 5 levels of pleasure in life, okay? As a religious Jew, you get all 5 levels of pleasure. Judaism doesn't teach you to run away from the physical. We're not like other religions. Again, this is a big misconception. People look at, for example, they look at, Christianity and Islam, which are religions that say, oh, you want to be holy? Like Christianity says you can't have sexual relations to be holy. Buddhism says run away to the mountains. Islam says don't drink alcohol. We're against that. And there's 2 extremes. One extreme is the secular world that says, run after everything, be materialistic. It's all about materialism, whatever. Live, eat, and drink because tomorrow you're going to die. And the other extreme is the Christianity, Islam, Buddhism says run away from pleasure. Judaism says no, we're all about pleasure. But we have a goal with the pleasure. It's not the end goal. It's a means to an end. Right? So when I eat and drink, of course, Judaism, I eat a good steak, eat good food, eat healthy food, take a vacation, relax, play some sports, do the physical stuff. But it's a means to an end. It's all about, okay, that's going to help me get closer to my Hashem. That's, me, if I eat healthy, I'm going to live a longer life, spend time with my family. Everything we do is not an end of itself, but it's a means to an end. So as a religious Jew, you get all, again, when we do physical pleasures, we maximize it. We don't go for short-term, pleasures. Like, again, for example, I'm not gonna, this is an extreme example, but people will watch bad stuff online and they get that intense pleasure for 2 seconds. We're not about that. We're about long-term pleasure. Okay? Just like you guys, everybody here, we're trying to go to school. Why are you going to school? It's suffering. It's hard. Don't go to school. No, you're going to school because I might suffer now. It's hard. I'm working hard, but in the long term, it's going to give me pleasure. So we're all about that. And the same idea applies to Judaism. It's all about long-term pleasures. Yeah, Jewish people, we're not into the idea of, date a girl, do that, all that kind of stuff, mess around with girls. No, we respect girls. Women are not, pieces of meat. Every girl deserves to have, a unique relationship with her husband, right? So we're not for short term. Let me do it. We're in for the long game. We're in for the long run because we know that at the end of the day, those stuff are the people who are not doing those things, who are more successful than the people who are doing those things, right? We're not, whatever. But the idea is Torah teaches you to be happy. It's all about being happy. It's all about being joy. It's all about being balanced in those 5 areas. Again, as a religious Jew, you have physical pleasures, you have love, you have meaning in your life, you have creative meaning because you're trying to do creative things, and you also have the meaning of spirituality, of being connected to God. We're all about being joy. Again, I grew up, if you guys don't know this, I grew up my entire life as a secular Jew. I didn't keep Shabbat, I didn't keep all this kosher, all this kind of stuff. But you know what? Becoming religious made me a much happier person. Why? Because I have a meaningful life. Pleasures, I do the pleasures, but I do them in the right way, right? I love my relationship with my family, my wife, my kids, right? My parents. It's such a different appreciation because I have Torah wisdom, right? My meaning, I'm doing meaningful things in my life, right? As you guys know, with different projects I'm doing, right? My relationship with God. So again, as a religious person, I think the only way to be happy is to have a relationship with God, right? And have that, because your relationship with God, like I said, it's Torah, mitzvot, character traits, helping other people, will enhance your relationship with everything else you do in your life, okay? So that's it. Again, that's a misconception. And if you see people who are religious and say, don't go on vacation, don't eat good food, suffer, that is not Judaism. That is another religion. You're mixing it up. And if you see it, those extreme, again, don't assume everyone else is like that. And no independence, right? So again, what does that mean? It means, maybe people think, if my kid becomes religious, he's going to be a brainwashed robot. Okay, very important. Judaism is unlike other religions. Other religions, it's actually brainwashed. They force you, they shove down they shut down like ideologies and dogmas down your throat and expect you to not to answer questions and go and believe in it. Judaism's not about that. Judaism is about becoming an independent thinker, becoming someone who's not doing things without logic and reason, who's thinking mind over matter, who's not being brainwashed by rabbi. We're not into the idea of being brainwashed by rabbi. We're not. Trust me, when there's something I don't understand, I talk to my rabbi, I argue back, right? Because we're all about getting to the truth, okay? So it's the last thing from brainwash. Brainwash is, again, I don't let you ask questions, I shove down information down your throat, I say, believe me, because you're going to burn in hell. Judaism is not like that. Judaism is all about logic, evidence, free thinking, letting people express themselves, right? Again, even as a religious Jew, there's so many types, spectrum of religious Jews, right? There's people who are more, how do I say it? There's like people who are different kind of, I don't know how to say it, but being, I don't want to give examples because I might be like I don't want people to get like offended, but like there's so many different types of Jews out there who are religious, who fall under the spectrum. There's Sephardic, and maybe this is a better example. There's Sephardic Jews, there's Ashkenazic Jews, there's Hasidic Jews, there's hippie Jews. There's all types of Jews. It doesn't matter. You could be yourself. You could be creative. Again, I feel like Torah brought creativity out of me. Because of Torah, I became so much creative and so much more of a free thinker and really understanding this world and understanding everything. So it does make you in more. The point of the Torah is to make you independent, not the opposite of what people think. Again, other religions, I talk for them, but Judaism is all about that. Again, when you study Talmud, for example, it's all about debating, getting to the truth, going back and forth, figuring out what's the right answer. Again, if it was brainwashed, they would just say, read this, understand it, go. Now, are there rabbis who teach like that? Yes, there are rabbis who teach like that. And that might be their style. And if you don't like that, okay, that's not your style. And I don't think that's a style for everybody. There's different strokes for different folks, right? Again, but my rabbis and I think these are most rabbis out there are not like that. They're not like, we're gonna do this, you're gonna go to hell. They're normal. They explain things to you. They explain the bigger picture, right? They talk to you. They don't speak like that. They're not because it's much deeper than that. We don't believe in the idea of Christian hell, burning in fire and all that. It's not about that. It's much deeper. So again, Torah teaches you actually how to be a free thinker. Fine. So they're not rejecting Torah, they're rejecting. So I'd say like this, I don't think these parents and stuff are rejecting Torah. I think they're just rejecting a distorted image of Torah, okay? Okay, fear of the unknown, okay? So this is a big one. Maybe they're just scared because it's the unknown. We're all scared of the unknown. We're all scared to try new things, right? Meaning a secular parent, maybe they didn't interact so much with religious people. Again, so unfortunately, there are some religious people who don't know how to interact with secular Jews, right? I'm in the world where the people who I know are religious are always interacting with secular Jews. But there are religious Jews who don't interact. And again, that's on them. I don't, I can't talk for them. But that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says you have to interact with every single Jew, teach them, be a good role model, help people, be out there. Don't just focus on yourself, focus on outreach, helping other people, right? So interacting with everybody, showing people, like when, I had a student who said, Rabbi, I always grew up thinking there's two types of Jews. Either you're on the far left, extremist liberal, all the way to the left, or you're on the extreme right, in the sense that you're extremely Hasidish, clothes, whatever. Again, I'm not blaming them. That's a different approach. And again, that's their thing. I'm not saying to be like that, and I'm not judging them. That's, they have their own approach. But he's like, I never met a rabbi like you who's like someone who's religious, who's committed to his religious values, but also is involved in the secular world, right? You have both, and you talk normally. You don't have the pace. You have the, you don't really have a beard. Again, there's not a real beard what I have, okay? And you have a phone, like, you have a computer. You're interactive. You're on social media, like, right? Again, I'm even though stuff I'm on, I do it with precaution, right? So I'm not, but I'm just trying to say is that they saw like, oh, I didn't see there's an in-between. There's like, what they call normal. Not to say other people are not normal, but from their perspective, what they think is normal, okay? And there is that pathway in Judaism. So, again, I really feel, again, and I extremely criticize religious Jews all the time. Again, I'm a religious Jew. I criticize other religious Jews. Why don't you interact with secular people? They think you're not normal because you don't talk to them. Show them you're normal, right? You have a lot to relate with them. They're Jewish, right? So, stigma, religious people are weird, again. You just have to meet the people who are normal. And again, yeah, are there weirdos? Of course, there's weirdos with everybody, right? But again, just because they're religious, so you assume all religious people are like that. When again, it's just, what's it called? The outliners, right? That's a good word for it. They're just outliners, people like that. But most religious people are normal human beings who are going to college, going to work, living life, dentists, doctors, lawyers. Social discomfort, again, sometimes it feels weird. Okay, this guy looks like this, I look like this. Like, what do we have in connection? In reality, we're Jews. We have a lot of things to connect to. Also, lack of exposure, right? Again, some people are not in that religious environment. They never went to shul. They never interacted. Or maybe they had a bad interaction. Maybe they met that outlier that basically turned them off, right? But again, not all people are like that. Most, from my experience, I talk to many Jews. Are there outliers? Yes. But most Jews, if there's a secular Jew that walks into the shul, they say, hi, how are you? They respect them. Yeah, it could be one time a secular Jew went to shul and he felt judged by somebody, right? Again, that's the natural feeling you get when you go into an environment that you're not used to, and you assume things. But trust me, no one's judging. Trust me, on the other end, they're scared to talk to you because they also feel like, oh, how is he going to look at me or whatever, right? So it goes both ways, okay? But again, I just think it's lack of exposure. If you just meet religious people, you see it's not as scary as you could think you thought it was. Okay, historical, there's a lot of stuff I wrote here. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to try moving fast. Again, whoever has to go could go. I want to finish this. I just think it's very important. I know this is like an hour, and we've been going on for an hour and 14 minutes, but again, very important stuff. And I want to say this all in one video. So again, whoever wants to stay could stay. Whoever has to go could go. I hope this video works. It might not be recorded. Sometimes these videos just, totally blank out and like the audio might even turn off. I really don't know. So I'm just going to say it now. Whoever has to go could go. Whoever could stay could stay. Again, usually the classes are 30 minutes. I've never gone an hour and 15 minutes in a Zoom class before, okay? So I'm just letting you know this is just this is a extreme case right here. This is an outlier case. But again, I want to keep going because I feel it's important to know, and maybe the other class of how to deal with it will make it part 2 of it. That's probably what I'm going to do. Okay, fear of the unknown. So we said that historical survival wiring, okay? For centuries, Jews always were staying quiet, not standing out, avoiding attention. Why? Because of persecution, because of anti-Semitism, right? For them, religious visibility equals danger, okay? So subconsciously, to be too religious means unsafety, right? This fear transferred emotionally across generations. So again, is that a reality? Yes, we live in a world filled with anti-Semites. Again, but that shouldn't stop you. Okay, so you're scared of wearing a kippah. You shouldn't be scared. Again, America is much different, but if you're scared, okay, wear a hat. It doesn't mean you don't have to keep Shabbat anymore because you're scared of being religious. Like, come on, right? Or hide the mezuzah. Do what you do. Do your thing. Don't make it because, I'm scared of what's going to be going, all that stuff. Again, then don't live life. Don't do anything in life then because you're scared, right? You have to be normal, live life, And again, I'm not telling you to go to the Arab guy or the Muslim guy and say, hey, look at my kippah, and go, ask him to, like, I'm not saying do that. Be normal. Just, again, if you're really scared, okay, wear a hat at the end of the day. You don't have to wear a kippah. But I'm just saying that's something we don't have to worry about as much as in America. But again, if it's a concern, okay, so there's ways of going about it. That doesn't mean it's all or nothing, okay? Because now I'm scared. I don't have to keep to Shabbat anymore. Like, there's no connection. Trauma for Iranian Revolution or even other places, right? So again, in Iran, for example, there was, and again, you can say this in Russia and all these places, religion, people who are religious were oppressed, clergy, all the, again, I'm not talking about Jewish people, I'm talking about like the non-Jews, right? The Christians, the Muslims of the time, where they're corrupt, there's a lot of religious hypocrisy, right? So again, people associate what happened with their religion, like other religions like Christianity and Islam, and they applied it to Judaism, right? For example, they look at the imam of the Muslim and they say, oh, look at these people, they're hypocrite or whatever, and they apply that to religious rabbis. Again, are there rabbis people call themselves rabbis and act up? Yes. That doesn't represent all religious Jews. Like I said, don't judge Judaism by the Jew, okay? But again, someone who's a rabbi is supposed to be living up to the Torah and is not supposed to be doing those things that are potentially, corrupted or whatever. Again, so if you see a rabbi is all about money, okay, not all rabbis are like that. There are some rabbis who are off, or that's their approach. They're not doing the right thing and they're off, and Hashem will judge them for that. But don't assume all the other rabbis are like that, right? And don't judge Judaism by the other religions. So even though Torah, right, trauma doesn't make clean distinctions. Again, subconsciously they believe religious system ruin lives. Again, people think that if there wasn't religion in the world, there'd be a lot of problems. First of all, that might be true. Yeah, if there wasn't all these fake religions, Christianity, Islam, and all that, yeah, the world would be a better place. But let me tell you something. If you want to know in history, if you don't just look at the stats, more people died, meaning hundreds of millions of people died under Mao, Stalin, Hitler, all these people are basically not religious people, than religious people died in history from religious wars, right? But again, Judaism, what do we call it? The Israeli Defense Force. We don't start wars, we don't fight. So again, I wouldn't compare Judaism to everybody else. Okay, number H, the alliance effect. Again, so I don't know if you guys know this, but in Iran, they had a reform movement. It was called Alliance, okay? These schools, people didn't know this. They thought, oh, it's a Jewish school, it's there, it's better than public school. But these Jewish schools were very influenced by the Reform movement. There's an Enlightenment period when Napoleon freed the Jews. So these movement of Reform Jews, who were, again, they called themselves Alliance, and they basically had that idea, like, again, they looked at religion as many people during the Enlightenment period, as backward-minded people who are like, backward-minded, old, relic of the past, right? That's why they call themselves Reform, because that means we're new. And Orthodox, really, it's actually a negative word, Orthodox. It means, they're backward-minded, stuck in the past, right? So these Alliance schools in Iran, which are all over Iran, all over except Iraq, that's the only country that didn't go because Ben Ish Chai stopped it from there. But all the other countries that had, Alliance, right? So these schools very influenced all the Persian Jews, like to be, in a sense, it replaced, for example, like, there's no Torah in these schools. They said, yeah, it's, the teachers were like anti-religious, dismissed rabbis, treated, culture, religion, promoted, secular things more than religious things, right? So their message was basically like Torah is backward, old, world suffering, and secular education is, meaning being more secular is all about, is more, it's gonna get you farther in life, dignity, protection, success. So parents internalized, basically, Alliance got the idea that religion kept us down. So too the Reform movement in, all these, in Europe, same idea. But again, obviously wrong misconception. Religion doesn't have to keep you down. It's only going to keep you down if you want to make it keep you down and think like that in your mind. But again, like I said, I repeated 500 times. You can be religious and you can be, both. You can have both. Okay. Result. So shame around religiosity, pride in being traditional but not religious. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm traditional. I'm Jewish." They wear the Magen David's proud, but they're religion. It's not for me. Those are people for losers or bad bach. They distrust rabbis. You know how many Persians think, rabbis, they're those thieves. Why? Why do you think that? Yeah, could there be rabbis who are thieves? Yes, but not all rabbis are like that. But again, that's the mindset that was implanted within them. So you have to understand that's what people are thinking in their mind. Rabbis, those thieves, don't trust them. Again, maybe they're comparing them to the imams, or maybe they're comparing them to, again, Alliance made people, again, the Enlightenment movement made people think like that, right? Discomfort with observance, right? Observance, keeping mitzvahs, no, it's not. Again, it reprogrammed how Judaism was perceived, which is, again, make people farther away. Okay, next, cultural honor and control. Persian families are tight-knit. Again, I'm giving an example of Persian. It could apply to any other groups, but Persian families are tight-knit, honor-based, parent-centric, right? So religion introduces allegiance to God above family, right? Because at the end of the day, right, the Torah says if your mom tells you to eat pork, you're not allowed to eat, listen to her, because God comes first, right? Again, doesn't mean disrespect your parents, but if they tell you to violate the Torah, you're not allowed to listen to them. If they tell you to hop in the car on Shabbat, you're not allowed to listen to them. Now again, does that mean you can't go to your uncle or aunt's house? Okay, before Shabbat starts, you Uber. If it's walking distance, okay, you walk an extra 30 minutes. I don't know. There's ways. If you have energy, there's ways of working it out. Okay, people know. Okay, and if you can't meet, there's no way possible because this, that, you can't sleep over, you can't go before Shabbat, whatever. It's too far of a drive, walk, bike, scooter. I don't know. Then guess what? You go another day of the week and you hang out with them. You want to visit your grandparents? Go on a Sunday, go on a Monday. Why does Shabbat have to be the day where you have to drive in a car, right? So again, so people are scared. Oh, religion comes before family. Again, that's what we believe in. That's not. I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm not gonna dull what I'm saying. It's true. We can't, again, doesn't mean disrespect your parents, but if your parents are telling you to violate the Torah, kosher, you're not allowed to listen to them. And if you might say, well, the Torah told you to honor your parents, well, the same Torah actually tells us that if your parents tell you to go against God in the sense of violating the Torah, you're not allowed to listen to them. Again, doesn't mean disrespect them, doesn't mean put them down in their place, right? But again, there's a way of working it. So your parents want to eat pizza, let them do what they want to do. It's not right what they're doing, but let them do it. Don't be judgmental. You get your kosher pizza and eat it next to them, So there's ways of making it work. Again, we'll talk more about that later. Independent thinking, right? Rabbinic authority. Oh, rabbis, this, that. Again, people think in Judaism, especially Persians, rabbis, they made up all these laws, right? So again, they never understood the system. Like again, if you read my book, I show you that when the Torah said listen to the rabbis, right? It's not that we're listening to rabbis and closing our eyes. God said in the Torah, listen to the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, right? There's a whole system of that God gave us, right? The Supreme Court, and these are the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, right? So again, there's a whole thing. I'm not going to go into that all now, but they just don't understand that. So it's hard for them to relate, so you have to explain them the system. Okay, emotionally. So they feel they're losing control, which translates into panic. But again, like I said, you can be tight-knit, you can still honor your parents. Okay, you don't drive in a car on Shabbat. What, you can't stand up for them, you can't honor them, you can't be nice to them, you can't hang out with them, right? Right, rabbinic authority. Again, there's no contradiction. Again, it's just like I said, it's all about having that extra energy to take the hosela. Hosela means the extra energy to make things work, and it has to come from both ends, and there has to be respect. Okay, very important. Past bad religious experiences. For example, like a lot of Persians, when they came to America, they didn't relate to the Ashkenazim here, or there's a cultural mismatch between religious and non-religious people, or they feel misunderstood, or not seeing a healthy version. Again, like they see people who are religious and are they're acting up, or they had a bad experience. Maybe there's a guy wearing a black kippah and cut them off in driving. I heard parents tell me that he cut me off in driving, or stole money from them in business. Right? Again, those people, as much as they like, again, like I said 100 times, just because they wear black velvet kippah does not make them religious. And even if they are religious, they keep Shabbat kosher. Okay, in that way, they were not being religious, and what they did was wrong, and that doesn't justify what they did. Okay, and again, religious people are not perfect; they make mistakes also. But again, don't judge all religious people. That's not what the Torah teaches, right? So again, don't. People have bad experiences, and unfortunately, it's very hard when it's emotional to get over it. But again, don't judge Judaism based off your bad experience. Judaism is great. You might that bad experiences, again, it's an outlier. And if you had multiple bad experiences, and I don't know what community you're in, but you're probably not surrounding yourself by the right people. But and where I'm at, The people I live next to are so caring. The community is so loving. Go out of their way for you. Like when there's people sick, everyone prays for them, help takes care of the kids, give them money when they need. The community is unbelievable what we have. That's the biggest part about being a Jew is that you have that community, and it's something where again you're not gonna get that. It's not easy to get. So it's so. Again, if you have bad experience, okay, that was your experience, but it doesn't mean all people are like that. That's what I would say to that. Again, it's an outlier. Religion isn't for us. That's what people think. But again, don't judge Judaism by the bad experience. Influence of other parents, very important. Fear spread socially. Stories of families that are torn apart. This is a big one. Warnings of extremism, secondhand panic. So again, you can have, this mom, her friend's kid went to yeshiva, became religious, stopped talking to the family. Again, are there people like that? Yes. Are those people wrong? Yes. Is that most people? No. Okay? Are those people doing the wrong thing? Yes, they're doing the wrong thing by not fighting with their parents, talking, whatever, and they're tearing their families apart. Religion shouldn't tear your family apart. It should make it even stronger to your parents and family and make you have a better life and a better family. Okay? If it does, that means you are not keeping the right Judaism. You're keeping some other version of Judaism. You're not keeping it. Oh, but so parents would say, oh, well, I want to eat at Pizza Hut and my kid wants to eat at Nagila, or I want to eat at non-kosher. Okay, like I said, that doesn't have to tear a family apart. It's not a big deal to eat kosher pizza versus non-kosher. That's about your taste buds, right? So if it's better than non-kosher, okay, so to make your son happy, eat at the kosher restaurant. And if you don't, so go eat at your house, you eat your Pizza Hut, and he eats his kosher pizza, you make it work. I'm just saying, like I said, it's all about going out of the way. It's only going to get teared apart if the families, again, like, again, don't judge, there's you got to read this article by Caroline Mabubi, who had her son, became religious, went to yeshiva, whatever. She wrote a whole article, and she said, I let other people make me almost ruin my relationship with my son based off their perspective because they have bad experiences, when in reality, yeshiva is not like that. That's not what they teach you there, right? Again, they teach you how to be a man, how to work on your character, how to work on jealousy, anger, patience, right? How to be a good husband, right? That's what yeshiva is teaching you. So for them, other people had bad experiences, so now don't make other people's bad experience your bad experience. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? And again, Caroline Mabubi is a perfect example of somebody who almost let that ruin a relationship with her kids, and she didn't, and she appreciated it because she saw, whatever. Fear of judgment, parents fear, he'll think we're wrong, he'll think we're less. Again, I said that's wrong. Religion equals moral hierarchy. Again, you shouldn't judge your parents. Identity disruption for many Persian families. Jewish identity equals ethnic plus cultural, right? Deep observance feels like a shift in identity structure that feels destabilizing. Again, you're Jewish. Your identity of Judaism doesn't come from your Persian culture. It doesn't come from anything of that. That's important. You want to have your Persian culture, fine, but you are a Jew, and Judaism without the Torah and mitzvot is not Judaism. So that's a part of your culture. And again, you can make it work with your identity. There's a whole thing. Again, so quickly summarizing everything I said. Religion, people believe religion becomes associated with danger, poverty, extremism, separation, shame, loss of control, political oppression, cultural alienation. So they fight what they don't understand. Also, another thing very important, a psychological thing, and I'll finish with this. And next time I do my next class, probably I'll do it in a week from now, I'm going to go over the solutions of how students should deal with it with their parents. But the last thing I think, what I really feel is that parents get identity crisis. What does that mean? When you're, let's say, in the back of their head, right? These parents are, they fast on Yom Kippur. They believe Judaism is true. If you put a gun to their head and told them, give up your life for Judaism, I guarantee all these people would give up their lives. Right? In the Holocaust, the most secular Jews, they told them step over Torahs. They didn't keep the Torah, they didn't keep anything. But they gave up their lives not to step on a Sefer Torah, right? On a Torah scroll. So secular Jews, trust me, they're very rooted into Judaism. It's very important to them, okay? And they know it's true. Even if they deny it, they know in the back of their head it's true, okay? Because you're not fasting on Yom Kippur. If rabbis made up the Torah, they made everything. They didn't just, it's not that, Yom Kippur is from God and everything else is not. It's all given from God. They know that in the back of their heads. But the problem is what? They get an identity crisis. Why? Because when the rabbi on the street is keeping mitzvot, that doesn't bother you. Let them do his thing. But when your kid is doing it and your kid is constantly reminding you, it's giving you something called cognitive dissonance. You're seeing your kid keep Shabbat, keep kosher, all that. So sometimes, and this is what happens a lot, is that people feel judged. They feel, in a sense, oh, why am I not doing that? I know that's the right thing in the back of my head, but I'm not doing that because whatever reason, it's not comfortable, it's not easy, I don't want to give up on my desires, whatever reason it is, right? But they have cognitive dissonance. They know what the right thing in their mind to do, but on the other hand, right, they want to do whatever they want. They know the truth, but they want to live by their desires. So there's a battle in the brain, and usually the desires win. So in turn, right, they get an identity crisis. They see their kid becomes religious and get an identity crisis, and they say, if my kid becomes religious, maybe I have to become religious, and I have to rethink my life. And people don't want to live in that identity crisis because people don't like to change, especially if at a certain age, right? It's been so many years living in a certain way. So that's one of the big parts of what happens when kids want to become religious and their parents are against it. That could be one of the main reasons. And I've seen that myself a lot, that they get an identity crisis, and that makes them feel like, oh, I'm different and I'm this and that, and then they take it out on their kids. Okay, so again, there could be a lot of other things I didn't say, and again, I'm not trying to, God forbid, judge anybody. I understand the whole situation, right? But I think at the end of the day, it comes from ignorance. It comes from, why people don't want their kids to become religious, ignorance, bad experience, whatever it is, all the reasons I just gave. But there are solutions of how to deal with that and how to show parents that it's not as, it's not bad as what they think is actually the best thing that could ever happen to them, their kids. And they might not see it now, but in the long run, right, they'll see that it was the best thing that happened to them. And that I guarantee that if parents knew how important becoming religious was and having those values and Torah and mitzvah and all the things I just mentioned, and basically hearing this, they would appreciate everything I just said and actually would push their kids to become religious. Like so many parents that I met actually have realized that and are pushing their kids. And I'll share with you guys stories of cases that I have of people who who, didn't want to become religious and became religious, and their parents and the families, and, the whole situation, all that. So again, whoever watch this, please, I recorded, hopefully this recording is going to come out good. I'm going to connect the audio, whatever. Subscribe, share with other people. Again, I'm going to post it on YouTube because I want every person, especially Persian Jews in Beverly Hills, I want everybody to send it to their friends who are going through those situations to understand the other side of the picture and to see that it's not bad, so they don't, go crazy because their kids are becoming religious, and they'll be more chill about it and realize it's a really good thing. Okay. So with that being said, anybody have any questions before I finish? I know we went out for an hour and 30 minutes. Okay, it was a long time, but again, very important topic. There was a lot to say. So anybody have any questions I could address right now?
Hey, say, toiler, hustler, do a miss and make a bracha. Toiler, hustler, do a miss and make a